very good evening to all our participants here today. Welcome to the second part of the Global Tipping Point Summit. Today we have the second session of the Global Tipping Point Summit. The inauguration was on Friday. We had a fantastic session yesterday with Father Joe Pereira, and today we have it with none other than the world famous environmentalist, Mr. Bittu Sahgal. The first part of the Global Tipping Point Summit started on the 20th of November and went on to the 13th of December, and it was primarily on education. But we had a lot of parents attending the Education Summit, and now, today, we have a lot of educators attending the Parent Summit. Our aim is to see that parents and educators are on the same page. So welcome to the summit. I am Dr. Kumi S. Vivaina, the founder director of the summit. I welcome you. I have been the head of the Department of English in the University of Mumbai till 2016. I'm a writer, a literary critic, a storyteller, been a TEDx speaker, and an international trainer, teachers as well as parents. A few words about the summit. When we first started thinking about the summit, we wanted the themes to be extremely relevant, and we wanted to see visible changes. When it came to parenting, we were trying to figure out ways in which we could create mutually enriching relationships between parents and children. So the parent-child relationship today seems to be fraught with a lot of anxieties. Can we work through these anxieties? And none of us are experts, but we can only try. And we have world-class speakers at the summit. So it was Father Joe Pereira yesterday talking about addictions. Today, Mr. Bittu Sahgal talking about creating compassion and connecting children mindfully and heartfully with the world. Next week, we have creativity, nurturing creativity in children, differently abled children, parenting them. We have cyber wellness, which is something which concerns a lot of parents today. Integral parenting, where you see the child as a spirit and not as matter to be worked upon, not as matter on whom you can foist your ideas. We also have some amazingly interesting sessions towards the end. The Scars of Shaming, Ms. Mahira Desai, and Mr. Mark McLeod, Dr. Mark McLeod from Australia, who's going to talk about social justice issues and how we create awareness of them. We have a special guest speaker also, Father Guthrie Disa, who is going to talk to us about depression in COVID and post-COVID times. This particular summit has a different kind of model, a different kind of structure. It is not merely people coming, listening to the speaker, asking a few questions and going home. Basically, what we have is at the center, I've illustrated through this diagram, at the center is a speaker, and the speaker speaks for about 20 minutes. 4 change facilitators, whom you see here represented in blue color, have been working with the speaker over several months, thinking and designing a very meaningful mini project. Today, they will be talking about their mini project. We will invite you, the online audience, to sign Google Forms and hop in and become members of our action group and actually work towards change. The subtitle of this particular summit is Words to Action. So in order to generate action, we have these action projects. The 4 change facilitators are going to teach it to people who are interested. The training is entirely free of cost. The only commitment being that those who avail of the training go out into the world, create their own small groups, and try out and implement the ideas of the change facilitators and the speaker. At the end of the year, they come back to us with an impact report saying how well they've succeeded. So this is a structure of the summit, and this summit is very unusual, really large. There are 108 people who've been working over months to make this possible. And I feel the need to thank each and every one of them, but that won't be possible. I'll thank at least some of them. I need to begin by thanking my advisory board, comprising Dr. Feroza Godrej, Mr. Norshud Karodi, Mr. Norshud Dadrawala, Mr. Sanjay Rastogi, Dr. Shehnaz Kama, Mr. Yasdi Tantra, Ms. Debika Chatterjee, Ms. Raki Chabria, and Ms. Fiona Reynolds. The advisory board has been supported by the core committee, and the main person here is my summit coordinator, Ms. Donna Reen, who has worked with me night and day over months to make it possible. Thank you very much, Donna. Also, thanks to Mr. Yasdi Tantra, Deepa Soman, Mr. Milind Soman, Glenn Concesio, and Mr. Bhavin Shah. We have also partnered with Tata Trent, Yasdi Tantra Tech, K Merck, Lumiere Business Solutions, Education World, Parent World, Penn Ultimate, Teachers Help Teachers, First Mom Club, and Wolves. The video you saw at the beginning of the program was created for us by Wolves. So many thanks to all. We have been extremely fortunate to have received very encouraging support from luminaries like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. A day before the Education Summit began, the Dalai Lama sent us this letter in which he says, I am pleased to know about the Global Tipping Point Summit and its focus on improving the present education system so that our younger generation can become more responsible citizens of the planet. We have also received a very heartening message from none other than the founder of the Isha Foundation, Sadhguru. Sadhguru's team says we are touched by the GTPS initiative to empower the youth to be well equipped during these challenging times, and we're happy to share some quotes from Sadhguru to be part of it. General Shokin Chauhan, recipient of 5 Presidential Distinguished Service Awards, has also sent us a goodwill message, as has Dr. Kersi Chowda, one of the leading psychiatrists in India today. Mr. Shamak Dava, internationally acclaimed choreographer, singer, performer, entertainment director, has also sent us a goodwill message, as has Shri M, spiritual guide, social reformer, educationist, and Padma Bhushan awardee. Cyrus Brocha did a very interesting podcast with me. Cyrus is a TV anchor, as you know, theater personality, comedian, podcaster, and author. Mr. Baman Irani also did a podcast with me. You know him as a theater and film actor, voice artist, and photographer. Others also need to be thanked, particularly my design team, technical team, and organizing team. My design team comprising Rhea Soman, Disha Upreti, Jahnavi Kulkarni, Rohan Signikar. Technical team, Faizan Charna, Ashish Kadam, Disha Poddar, and our social media expert, Neha Vatsala. Our organizing team, Shahrukh Vevaina, Dr. Nina Nair, Shalanta Mascarenas, Valerie Mendonça, Nagma Sheikh, Mustaq Sheikh, Madhu Nair, Gautami Ambiye, and Deepthi Mazumdar. So, today we have, as I said earlier, none other than the world-famous environmentalist, Mr. Bittu Sahgal. Mr. Bittu Sahgal, we warmly welcome you and thank you for having accepted our invitation. The session will be taken forward by writer, mom influencer, and social entrepreneur, Ms. Anupama Dalmia. Anupama, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumi, for inviting me to be a part of this fantastic summit. It is my honor and pleasure, to be a part of something so special. I especially loved the concept of, words to action, because, we can, of course, talk a lot, but unless we really convert them into some action, then we don't see, the impact of it. I'm a writer, a serial entrepreneur who runs 3 ventures, and I'm also a mom influencer. As a writer, I think a lot of what I write has come from my parenting experiences. My daughter is almost 6 years old. And I think after motherhood, the way I've looked at the world around me, that has changed immensely. And I think all that perception, those perspectives and musings, they come through in the form of my writings, which is why I always say that my daughter is my muse. As an entrepreneur, I run three ventures. One is a dance enterprise called Rhythms and Beats. One is a cookery venture, which I run along with my mother. And then there is the most special of all, which really means a lot to me, and that is Beyond the Box. Because as a part of Beyond the Box, I work closely with children. I day in and day out interact with children. And years back, I felt that there is a real gap between how creative writing is perceived in the conventional education system and what it actually is and can do to an individual. And that's when I decided that I want to give a space to children to express without the fear of judgments and to bloom to their full potential. And that's how Beyond the Box took birth. So at Beyond the Box, we strongly believe that learning is fun when you make it fun. And our vision is to empower children by encouraging them to own their thoughts and expression. We constantly strive not just to nurture the creative writing skills in them, but our approach is holistic, and we try to provide them the stimulus to make them more perceptive, more observant, and more thoughtful individuals. And I really think that, it's time we tell the kids that they don't need to look in the box or out of the boxes, but they truly need to look beyond these boxes and focus within, because within is where, they will find their true selves. And I'm really glad that today Beyond the Box has been able to reach out to thousands of kids across the globe through sessions, workshops, and classes to help them discover their voice and express and articulate their thoughts fearlessly. Uh, and as a part of my role as a mentor and as a mother, I instantly connected to the ethos of the Global Tipping Point Summit. And I truly believe that reinventing parenting actually is a collective responsibility of anybody who's associated with a child at any capacity, especially today's topic of mindfully and heartfully connecting children to earth. I think that also is so much in line with what Beyond the Box stands for, because I feel that it's not only about raising an environmentally conscious generation, but I strongly also believe, and I have also seen that with my child as well, that bringing them closer to nature and earth inculcates more imagination in them. It sparks that creativity. It makes them more respectful. It makes them sensitive, responsible, as well as emotionally healthy. In fact, of late we've been talking to our daughter about what really goes behind the food that comes on her table, and we have also been creating this mini garden at home. And I have truly seen how that has created a positive impact on her. So I'm really looking forward to today's session to learn so much more about this. And as Dr. Kumi already mentioned, we have the best person with us to talk to us on this beautiful topic. He's an icon who is respected and looked up to by everyone worldwide. Even I have, always looked up to the work that he's been doing. So Mr. Bittu Sahgal is here with us today. He's the founder of the Sanctuary Nature Foundation, editor of Sanctuary Asia, India's first and largest circulating wildlife and ecology magazine from 1981, and founder editor of Sanctuary Cup 1984, which is India's oldest and only wildlife magazine for children. He was closely involved with Project Tiger since its inception in the 1970s and has spent over 4 decades writing about and calling attention to conservation issues in books, magazines, and newspapers in both English and regional languages. He has also produced 30 wildlife documentaries, led national and international environmental campaigns across media platforms, including social media. He created Kids for Tigers, a conservation program for school children that has reached over 1 million children and has been run successfully for almost 2 decades. Bittu has served on a range of government and non-government organization boards and committees over the last 30 years, including the National Board for Wildlife, Government of India, the IUCN World Conservation Union, the Wild Foundation USA, and the Expert Appraisal Committee for Infrastructure, Ministry of Environment and Forests, Government of India. He works with policymakers, social workers, economists, and scientists at the trijunction of biodiversity, climate change, and economics, speaking at national and international platforms in support of wilderness conservation while continuing to spearhead the work of the Sanctuary Nature Foundation. That is an amazingly inspiring profile, sir, and I'm truly looking forward to get enriched by you in this session. And I would request you to take over the session and take it forward.
Thank you so much, Anupama, and thank you, Kumi. I think all of us here are basically one family. We're discussing things that affect the future, but at my age, I know that we're not only discussing the future, we're also discussing the culpability of the past and the present. So let me put it like this. Yes, we run Kids for Tigers, and the four people who you will be interacting with are wonderful human beings that I have had a lot of time to work with, years to work with. And there is one simple thing that all of us believe, all the four people who will be with you on your voyage. This is that kids don't do what you tell them to do, kids will do what you do. So if you don't set a good example, don't expect the world to follow suit. Don't expect children to follow suit. Why children? Even adults. We talk of parenting. Well, now I'm a grandparent. And I'll tell you this, that it's a beautiful world. The first thing that children need to know, as a parent, I'm speaking now, when my kids were growing up, is that it's a beautiful world. You need to expose them to this world in ways that make them feel awe, wonder, curiosity, love, all those emotions at different times flowing through your child will make that child an adult that is capable of living in a world that is not exactly perfect for the way that we have designed ourselves to live right now. What was it that nature expected of us? It's not my words. Let me quote a very long bearded human being, not Santa Claus, but Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin said that it's not the most intelligent, it's not the strongest, it's the most adaptable that will survive. Now, as parents right now, we have a fork in our lives. COVID-19 has presented us with a fork in our lives. The fork was always there, we never recognized it. If you look at Raj, or you look at any of the other speakers who you will be interacting with, you will realize that it's been now, for me, it's been about 30 years that we've been saying the same. We've been parroting the same thing, that if you destroy nature, nature will destroy you. That's the simple one liner to the children. But to the parents, what we say is, how do we want to be remembered? Do we want to be remembered as colonizers? Do we want to be remembered as gluttons? Do we want to be remembered as arrogant, ignorant, avaricious, apathetic human beings? Or do we want to be remembered as who we really are? Loving, caring, aware, curious, all those things that you want the children to be, you have to be yourself. If you are not that, if you are not that, don't expect our children. Then parenting is not how to hold a knife and fork, how to get to school, how to make sure you get good marks, how you get a good job. That's not parenting. Parenting is basically it's down now to one single straightforward thing. I, as a grandparent now speaking, I want to leave a better world for my grandchildren. But I also want to leave better grandchildren for my world than I was. When I say I was, I'm talking collectively for the rest of humanity as well and my generation. So it's possible for us to speak to you directly, but when we speak to children, I'm acutely aware of two very simple things. I know this from personal experience in 40 years. If you present somebody with a problem that they can't solve, the shutters fall, eyes glaze over, catatonic shock sets in, and you think to yourself, I can't fight this behemoth. What am I going to do? Who am I? I'm just so small. But that is not true. We are not small as individuals. A child needs to feel empowered, not empowered to fight you or fight me or have a debate, but empowered to know that that child was born designed to live with the planet, in this planet, with blue skies and clean water. Look at what happened during the pandemic. Let me use that pandemic as a metaphor of sorts. In March, when India began to realize, we were going to hold a very large, very, very large global conference. Oh my God, I would have to pay beer money for calling it a conference. It wasn't a conference, it was a global gathering. And that was Wild 11. The idea was that the planet, the biosphere, is a living creature that actually, the whole planet is an organism that actually needs us to flow with its tide. And the destruction that we have wreaked on this planet, we need to make sure that we return half of the planet to nature, so that, like your liver, it can repair itself and continue to function and feed the rest of your body with the energy you need to live. Now, Wild 11 itself was called off. And those of us who wanted to convey to ordinary people, we have already conveyed everything that I will share with you in the next 5-7 minutes. We have conveyed all these things to policymakers, we have conveyed them to bankers, we have conveyed them to industrialists, we have conveyed them to heads of state, to ministers. Now the issue is just this before us as parents. How do we manage to make sure that the damage that was done yesterday, that the pandemic lessons are learned, and that we realize that our answer is not to try and become a butterfly or a bee to plant 1 million trees. Planting trees was never planting trees was never the forte of human beings. The gardeners of Eden are the ones that plant the trees. We were not the ones that came down over here and fashioned everything like an interior exterior designer. We were born into paradise. So pretend for a moment that you are 10 years old, like the children who are part of Kids for Tigers. Here is what we tell them. Wouldn't you like to live in a magic house? The doors are made of chocolate. The windows are made of lollipops. You open the tap, you get lemonade and lovely sweet things. And then when you go to sleep, suddenly you wake up in the morning and everything is back again. And the kids say, yes, Bittu uncle, we would love to live in a house like that. So I said, suppose somebody was to come and destroy your house, take it away. Would you be happy? Or Bittu uncle, we'd be very unhappy. I said, every langur, every squirrel, every bird lives in a magic house. It's its house. It provides its food. It provides its shelter. And thanks to this magical orb in the sky, the sun, it comes back and everything comes back to normal again. So the same way that you wouldn't want your home to be destroyed, you wouldn't want your phone to be taken away, you wouldn't want your chocolate cake to be taken away, why should we take away that from millions of other creatures, and not just ordinary creatures? These are the gardeners of Eden. They are the ones that are making it possible for us to say, and take in breath that doesn't ruin our lungs, drink water that doesn't poison us, eat food that makes us grow, create a circumstance in which we are happy. So, again, I will say to you that I have only two ambitions for the generations to come, in which includes my daughters, now approaching 50, and my grandchildren. Now, one is a teenager, just about. I just want them to be safe and I want them to be happy. I don't have a third ambition. Within these two ambitions come everything. We are teaching them the most simple of human rights, laws, rules, call them what you will. That I can swing my fist around any way I want, but my right to swing my fist stops at the point of everybody else's jaw. So if I am rich or I am poor or I am north or I am south or I am black or I am white or I live in America or I live in India, we all live on a small blue marble. So while democracy tells us we can do everything, democracy doesn't tell us I can come into your house, steal your, most precious things, destroy your art, destroy your painting, defile your carpet. We have to respect each other. And quite frankly, having said all this, I spoke to you about parenting in the age of COVID, which is just a small little pinprick compared to what lies ahead, because The 12-year-olds are told this one simple story by us, in Kids for Tigers and Sanctuary, which they understand, which they accept almost like gospel. But for some reason, like a glass ceiling, the moment we go up in age, the moment we go past teenage, the moment we go into young executive looking to prosper in life, somehow or the other, the message doesn't get through. The message is essentially this, that if you want the planet to be the kind of planet you want to be, then the change begins with you. And don't try to do everything. Try and do only that which you can do. And don't try, for instance, that okay, all kids want to be vets when they grow up. That's natural because that's the way you think of looking after animals. But the fact of the matter is that a poet uses poetry to improve the world. A writer uses his writing. A scientist uses science. A teacher uses the ability to teach and lead by example. Businessmen, it's not the money that they give, but it's the acumen that they give to organize and to understand. The scientists, my word, the scientists, they are out there. I would call them the frontline warriors today, fighting against a system that believes that the nature should adapt to us. So when we talk to children, and we talk to children and actually run the equivalent of an adult education program, what we tell the children is each one teach one, each child teach an adult. Trust in nature, set the right example, and make sure of one simple fact that, like a cut on your hand, if you just leave nature alone, it will come back to life. How this cell and that cell will magically manage to form themselves like a self-organized jigsaw, and everything comes back. Now, why do we do this? We do this because we don't have the right to damage a child's psyche. I cannot give the child a problem created by my grandfather and my father and me and hand it down to my daughters that, look, we've messed up the world, now you have to clean up the world. Instead of that, what we tell them is remember the magic house. Remember that if you do no damage, everything comes back. Remember that during COVID 19, when you looked up Delhi skies, which were murky, they were blue. The waters in the Yamuna, they came back to life. Suddenly, you found all the hidden animals that were around were coming around and making themselves more visible because we got locked in. So, when we explain to children exactly what COVID 19 was, through the children, we reach parents and we tell them that this is what it was. If you look at the planet and the biosphere itself is not just self correcting, but the biosphere, the planet managers are bees, butterflies, monkeys, elephants, and you name it now. The tigers, of course, you see that tiger behind me. The tiger is just a metaphor. But we want not only to save the tiger, we want to save the tick on the back of the tiger. And as far as the tiger is concerned, if we take that metaphor and apply it to the polar bear, or we apply it to the jaguar, or we apply it to the kangaroo, or we apply it to the panda in China, it still applies. You cannot save the tiger if you don't save the forest. If you save the forest, you save all the creatures in the forest. When you save all the creatures in the forest, voila, magic. Suddenly, the forest itself, when the rain falls, it sponges the rain and feeds 600 Indian rivers. How does this magic take place between the sun, between the biosphere, between the oceans, between the mangroves? How does this happen? It happens because over trial and error, Darwin had pointed out to us that anything that was imperfect or incapable of adapting was actually taken off the slate. We right now, at this particular moment in time, we have a task ahead of us. The task is not to scare our children half to death by telling them the world is coming to an end. What we have to say to them with all humility, like reconciliation, is that we made mistakes. The collective we. It's not that one parent has to say, I was responsible. We made mistakes, but all those mistakes are correctable. Everything can be fixed again. Everything will be fixed again. And if you look at it now, at this particular juncture in time, look at the market for a minute. Many people on this program right now, probably I don't know what the sectoral professions are, but let's say you're a banker. Bankers are not any longer prepared to risk investments in coal. Why are they not prepared to do that? Because suddenly we find that wind and solar and energy efficiency has suddenly made it possible for us not to have such an expensive source of energy. And why expensive? Because it's not only the coal that's sending carbon dioxide up, but it's taking away the very forests that are in charge of the carbon cycle. And the magic that flows, the magic that happens over there, the interactions that happen are so complicated that the American army had one very simple philosophy to use when in war. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you don't know how to fix it, just leave it alone. It's functioning. It may not be ticking along like you want it to, but it is functioning and everything is okay. So here at this point, I'd like to actually, I mean, I could go on for much longer, and I don't think that that is the purpose of this meeting today. I'd like to ask, I'd like to ask of parents, I'd like to ask of teachers, I'd like to ask of all of us that we imbibe a touch of humility, a touch of curiosity that every child has, not be afraid to ask questions, and set a good example. And I'd like the adults, I presume there are no children listening to us right now. I'd like you to I'd like you to dine on the table of hope as well, because we are going to be all right. The things that were being done which were wrong, it's not possible to do those things, wrong things, for too much longer, because nature is removing from us the luxury of harming it. Ecosystems had species which were locked down in their ecosystems because that was their preferred way of life. That was the way over millions and millions of years that they had found a balance in life. Now we went into that. Let's go back to COVID 19 because it has hard lessons for us. It started with the bat. It's another thing that it's probably human beings that caused the spores that went into the bat to make it sick, and it released its viruses, but that's not the all of it. From the bat, it spilled over to possibly, probably, 90% probably, 99% probably pangolins. Pangolins are the world's most traded, illegally traded mammals today. When they went to pangolins, the pangolins are eaten in supposedly traditional Chinese medicine. They're boiled, their scales are turned into medicine and eaten and consumed, and the virus shifts. It's love me, love my dog. Now, the fact is that you had viruses sitting down in rainforests. They were used to those species. You had viruses in species living, they're viruses obviously in you as well. I mean, if you took viruses and put them end to end, they're so microscopic that you can't see them, but it would take light years of length for those viruses to actually be manifested itself to you. We cannot destroy the virus. We have to learn to live with it. We have to learn to respect it. And the way to respect it is what Raj will talk to you. It's what all these people will speak to you is nothing other than leave nature alone and nature will look after you. And for the adults again, now you're no longer kids. You're past the age of 10. It's the basic thing is that the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. If we want our economies to be strong, if we want our children to grow up in a world where they can be secure, and if we want those things that songs and poetry and volumes have been written, the best things in life are free, then it's time for us to set that example. And it's time for us to believe that business as usual won't work, but the option is wonderful. It is perfect. It is exactly what is required: more time with the family, more time outdoors, doing less damage, focusing on happiness, and listening to the scientists. I'm not a Trump fan. He never listened to the scientists. I see no reason why the mini Trumps around the world should not be given the same lesson, which is to say that, look, though you might mean well, we won't allow you to do this. It's time for the children not to be involved in a war, but to lend us their legitimacy, to lend us their purpose. When we do something to leave this world a better place for our children, education is gone way beyond the 3 R's. Education is now a question of how children and parents can adapt to a world and turn all the various lessons we've taught, whether it's history or geography or mathematics or science or chemistry or physics or anything that you teach the child, that has to relate to its real life. No more rote, no more getting 99% and saying that is what life is about. Understand the world, understand nature, understand your neighborhoods, understand that this world is just a small blue marble. If we can teach that humility to children, I believe we'll be good parents. If we can't teach that humility, first imbibe it, then pass it on to our children, then I don't want to end on a dark note. We won't be remembered well if we don't do that. But I have this sneaking feeling that we are actually, as our nomenclature suggests, Homo sapiens, the wise man. I do believe we will wake up in time. I do believe the world will be better. That's what drives me. That's what drives the people who you'll be interacting with. And I have rambled on because the fact is that when you talk with children, you don't talk linear. Children are 360 degrees. You ramble, you have questions, you have this, you have that. And Kumi, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all. I will tell you and close with this one thing, that all of us need a muse. For me, the muse has always been nature. Probably it's been the same for a lot of different people in different ways. But really, internally, on the insides of my heart, as I said, I have the two ambitions. I want my children and I want you all just to be safe and be happy. I don't have a third ambition, but I don't have the right to swing my fist beyond the point of your jaw. So human rights, environment, economics, they're all mixed up in one khichdi, and life is very good and it will be very good. But we must learn to obey, follow nature. Don't try to reinvent nature and make it follow us. It's actually not that complicated. You'll discover that over the next 3 months, I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was such an enlightening session. And in fact, I also see so many comments from the people who have been watching. Everybody has loved, and your experience and your passion comes through when you talk. In fact, I think there are so many things we can actually quote from what you said. It all resonated with me as a parent, and there are many things I'll keep in my mind, like with my daughter too. Especially, I loved how you took the pandemic's example as a metaphor and explained things to us. It was really beautiful. So as Dr. Kumi mentioned initially, there is a team of change facilitators who are working with sir on the project. So I would also now like to introduce them and have them also share their thoughts. So I'll just share my screen. Yeah. Yes. So this is the link where, any of the audience members, if you would like to sign up for the action project, you can be a part of that. You can fill this Google form on the website. And I'll just go. Yeah. Okay. So the action project is parenting for a better planet for our kids and better kids for our planet. And that's what sir also spoke about, that, it's not just about leaving a better planet for the kids, but, also we need to make them mindful and respectful, and so that they do better than what we did. And as he rightly said, the mistakes that we have made collectively, we can correct them. So it's about, how we get about doing that. And there is a wonderful team of 4 change facilitators. So I'll introduce all of them and then I will invite them to speak. So Preeti Takle, she's an environmentalist, avid trekker, and the Mumbai coordinator for Kids for Tigers. She is also a teacher trainer heading the Lodha Institute of Teacher Education. She is also an urban organic farmer. The second change facilitator is Rituraj Fukan, who is an environmental writer, adventurer, and naturalist. He is a national coordinator, biodiversity, climate reality project, Secretary General of Green Guard Nature Organization, and member IUCN. And he's also the Chief Operating Officer of Walk for Water. The next change facilitator is Hita Lakhani, who is a climate educator from Mumbai, India. She's an activist at the local as well as international level since the United Nations Climate Change Conference, that is COP21, in 2015. And then finally, we have Nikita Pimple. She's a fourth change facilitator who will be working with Sir on this project. She's a passionate educator, naturalist, and a conservationist. At the age of 26, she co-founded the Rishi Valmiki Eco School, RVES, in Goregaon for children from financially challenged families. So I would now like to request the change facilitators to share their thoughts and talk about what about the work and what they plan to do. So over to you. Maybe Preeti ma'am, probably you can start.
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
so, so basically, my topic is based on gardening, which is one of my passions and something that I have carried on throughout lockdown and much before that also. So there will be 3 modules in the 3 months that we're talking about, but they're all interlinked because once you start with one, you can't stop the other two from happening. So if we are to look at kitchen gardening, could we have the next one, please? So we would be talking about things that we require for gardening, like space, soil, pots, seeds, how to grow those seeds, how to maintain the garden, and also a sowing calendar so that you have food on your table from your garden all the year round. Next, please. So what are you going to get to take away from this? Of course, you'll be growing your own vegetables. You'll enjoy watching those vegetables grow. You'll get chemically free organic vegetables because you're not going to use any kinds of pesticides or insecticides at all. Plus, you'll have fresh herbs every day if you want to use them. Also, the most important thing that it will help is it will help sustain pollinators like bees and butterflies, which are almost disappearing. And we really need to give them some place where they can come and pollinate and feed themselves and multiply. Next, please. So this is just an example of the harvest from my little space that I have. I've grown tomatoes, I've grown brinjals, I've got a bay leaf plant, I've grown green pepper. And every year I have something new that keeps coming up. Next, please. Now, as you can see, this is an ivy gourd creeper and or tenli as we call it in Hindi. And believe me, when I started gardening for vegetables, the butterflies automatically came in, as did the birds. So gardening for butterflies is not really very different from gardening for your own kitchen. But if you really don't have the space for too much of vegetables, this is something that you could look at. Next, please. So there are a lot of common butterflies that inhabit Mumbai, and we will understand the life cycle of the butterfly and what is actually a butterfly garden, what they require, and what kind of plants we need to choose if we want to sustain a butterfly garden so that our butterflies are happy in our garden. Next. So you will play host to a variety of butterflies. And by the way, these pictures are taken in my garden. Okay. I'm not a very good photographer, but I like to take pictures and all these have been taken on my cell phone. So there have been a lot of visitors to my garden and some of them I've shared with you. You can also experience the healing that nature has to offer when you work with nature and when you observe these little beauties and you're having your little cup of tea. You can also be a part of the larger movement where you're restoring biodiversity in urban areas, because that is the need of the hour, I believe, since we live in the city and we are seemingly only developing concrete jungles. We need to provide these green spaces for these little friends of ours. Next, please. Again, birds. Very simple, very easy to get birds to your garden. When you're gardening for vegetables, when you're gardening for butterflies, the birds are bound to follow. Trust me. Next. So, the birds, we will learn the birds that normally visit an urban garden. What is it that the birds require? And we will plant trees that birds like, and what can we feed? You know, bird feeders are the rage nowadays. Everyone wants to have a bird feeder. But what is the kind of feed that you put in those bird feeders, and what kind of birds you're likely to attract? All of these birds again have been photographed in my little garden, and these sunbirds, purple rump sunbirds, have been nesting. As you can see the date on the photograph, it's 2015. For the past 5 years, every year without fail they nest in the garden, and I'm so happy to keep watching them. This is just one picture that I dared to take, because I know that taking pictures of nesting birds is such a no-no. It disturbs them. But these birds are totally unafraid. They build nests right next to you. You can't help but look into the nest. They are so close to you. Next. So you have birds in the garden. Your takeaway is going to be, you're not going to be woken up by the cawing of crows, but some melodious chirping. You will again be restoring biodiversity. You will be providing a safe haven for these feathered friends of ours by providing them with bird feed, water, shade, and a perch to rest when it's very hot in the day. You can enjoy this in from a balcony, from a windowsill, or any place, little space that you have in your home. It's just about opening up your home to these wonderful friends that we have. So that's about my 3 modules over 3 months. But trust me, once you start with one kind of gardening, everything else will just follow, because that is what nature is going to do to you. It's just going to take you on this fantastic journey where you're not going to be able to break your connection with the soil, with the water. And coming to water, I think Rituraj is more informed about water and what it needs to conserve water. And cities like Mumbai are thirsty. We don't have enough water. So we will be taking into consideration how we can save water while we are growing gardens. Thank you so much. I hand over to
So much,
Rituraj.
ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would invite Rituraj Fukan to share his project. I'm not sure if he's, yeah, he's, yeah.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation by Pretty Madam. And is my screen visible yet?
Yes, it is.
Okay, let me just get it on. Okay, fine. Right. So a very good afternoon from Assam to all the participants, and thank you to all the organizers for giving me this opportunity. It's been such a wonderful journey to learn about nature with Mr. Bittu Sahgal, and it's a continuous process. We're still continuing because every issue of the Sanctuary magazine and the Cub is actually a window to a new world. We learn so many things, and many of the things that we have learned practically and through the magazine are what I am looking forward to share with you over the next 3 months with my modules. And we already have a great introduction, so I will continue about to my slides about the modules. So the first presentation will be this is something I developed, connecting the 3 Ws. So I have worked with wildlife and with partnered with a lot of organizations, including the Sanctuary Nature Foundation across the country, especially where there are a lot of human wildlife conflicts, and worked with a lot of people who are working to provide fantastic local solutions to these problems. And then with Walk for Water, I had the privilege of being in some of the most water stressed areas in the country. But somehow I always found that these are all connected, the 3 Ws, as I say: warming, water, and wildlife. And we will look at that, how these are connected, and how some people, some incredible persons, one of them, my very good friend, the forest man of India, Jadav Payang, how he is actually facilitating the conservation of biodiversity, as well as ensuring water security, and at the same time helping to show the world actually the way forward on climate mitigation. The next module that I will be talking about is about biodiversity. So I always feel that kids always have a favorite animal, and when we talk about that particular animal and see what actually climate change is doing to them, how the habitats are changing, how food availability, water availability is been affected, and what we can do about it. This is something that I look forward to addressing during this presentation, from polar bears to penguins, uh, to elephants, tigers, and rhinos. All of these are changing, are living in a changing environment, and how they're responding is a fascinating subject. And this is something that I believe will really be of interest to all the participants. And thirdly, well, we live in the Greta Thunberg generation, but I have always found that the youth have been leading the environmental movement throughout the start of from 1970s. Throughout the start of this modern environmental movement, we have seen so many inspirational young people show us the way. Whether it is Felix Finkbeiner with Plant for the Planet, or even earlier with David Suzuki's daughter, uh, who electrified the world leaders during the 1992 Earth Summit. So all of these is something that we must imbibe in our future generations, and we will look to what there are so many from India as well. So we will look at all those young, inspirational environmental leaders during this module. And yeah, that's my three modules. So finally, I invite you all to be part of this uh, modules. And I once again, thank you all.
Thank you so much for sharing about your project, and that's really interesting. So over to you, Hita Lakhani.
Thank you so much, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today with all of you. Um, I have a background a little bit on the lines of something similar to what Mr. Rituraj Fugan just spoke about, which is also on climate change. So I'll be focusing on a few different aspects. The first one that I'll be focusing on is the interlinkage between food and climate. So everything that we eat, how does it affect our climate? How does our climate affect our food? And does the food we eat have any impact on the way the climate crisis is progressing? So that's what we'll be focusing on in the first session. First, learning about the basics of it, learning about the interconnectedness, if any, of the entire situation, and getting action points to how we can actually, what changes we can make in our own lives and in our own little diets to actually create a larger impact on the planet. The second session will be focused on the more or less the broader topic of climate justice and our current economic systems. So basically, how the climate crisis is affecting people from across the world differently. It is a global issue, but it doesn't affect all of us the same. And how does the current economic system, how does the way we're functioning today ensure that we're not really helping to solve the crisis, we're actually fueling the crisis even more? And what can we do? What can we as individuals and as parents do to teach our kids to be more mindful and be more heartful in the way that we're living our lives? And the third one is looking towards environmental careers. So when the world is changing, and like Bittu sir rightly said when he was speaking, that we're actually now, COVID-19 has presented us with a fork in the way that we're functioning to actually decide which path we want to take. And careers are changing. There are new careers coming up every year. It's a dynamic space now, and all of these are actually interlinked with the bigger climate scene and the environmental and the environment in general. So, what are the different careers that kids could look to when they want to take up a role, when they're old enough to start choosing which path they want to take. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would now like to invite Nikita Pimple to share her presentation. Yeah.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So yes, our topic is better kids for the planet and better planet for the kids. But how are we going to achieve it? If we want to achieve it, the very important thing what we have to look into is that our future generation is empathetic. If they are empathetic towards each other and if they are empathetic towards environment, then only it is possible to have better kids for the planet and better planet for the kids. And if we want to create empathetic generation, then we have to focus something on more than academics, and that I always say is life skill or social emotional learning, which is missing even nowadays. So here I always say that life skill and social emotional learning can be really taught very well through nature. Nature is a best teacher, best guru to learn about life skill and social emotional learning, because we are part of nature, we are connected with nature, so nature can teach us really well and to children. So I will be covering a lot of life skills and how to teach this to children through nature, like leadership skills, teamwork, observation skill, adapting, accepting failure, patience, persistence. Yes, all this is possible to learn through nature. And some important topics which I will be covering is gender equality, bullying, racism, all this can be covered through nature. To give you some examples, like snow leopard is the best example to learn about adaptation, how snow leopard get adapted to various situations, and then how, as individual human being, our children can get adapted to the situation or crisis if they come across. Black Panther is the best example to learn that we can be unique, we can be different, but if we accept ourselves, we can be successful. It is very important to love yourself. Families, like we have a lot of single parent families nowadays, and sometimes it is difficult to communicate with children about it. But if you give examples from nature, that seahorse is a single father family and there are so many single mother families out there in nature, then it is very easy for children to understand that it is not about how big or a small family is, it's about how much we love each other is important. And this is very easy to learn through nature examples. Adolescence, when children come in adolescence, then there are a lot of taboo topics which we have to talk about, like mating, reproduction, physical changes in the body, and there are so many examples in nature, and I can list one is gharial. Gharial, when the male becomes 13-year-old, it gets ghada on the snout. So the way boys get mustache, the similarly gharial get ghada on the snout. And this is so easy to teach children that, oh, this is normal, this is there. So this is what we are going to cover in 3 sessions. I will be covering more than 10 life skills, and we will be learning it through wildlife species examples. So parents will get to know about many wildlife species and how to connect this with your children and teach them life skills. And I will be providing a lot of tasks also which you can implement at home and try it out. And in the next session, we can discuss about it, whether we can do it at home or not. So yes, this I will be covering in 3 sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nikita. I think those are some really excellent projects, and all the change facilitators. I really hope we can bring about a change with that. And just to remind the audience that if you also would like to be a part of the action groups, there's a form, the Google form that you can fill on the website. Now there are a lot of questions for Bittu sir, and so I would like to take up some of these audience questions with you, sir. Um, the first question from the audience is, I think the most, the question that might be in the mind of most of the parents that, since the city child lives in a concrete jungle, what are the little things that, we can do at our end to sensitize them to nature? Or, are there any programs that one could join? If you could shed some light on that, sir. I'm not sure if Bittu sir, are you there?
Anupama, there is some work going on. So sir is having a bit of a connectivity issue, but well, he's here.
I think he's here, but sir, I think you're on mute. You'll have to unmute
Okay,
yourself.
I am so sorry. Unfortunately, I got displaced because we had a bunch of visitors by way of workers who had walked into the house. And with COVID being what it was, instead of going and hugging them and greeting them and thanking them, I had to run away from there. So please, could you repeat that question?
Yes, sure, sir. Yes, so the question is that, since the city child lives in concrete jungle, so what are the little things that we can do to sensitize them to nature because they don't really live, in the midst of nature? And are there any programs maybe that kids could join? If you could shed some light on that.
You heard from Preeti, just now. I
Yes,
would tell you this one thing, that if I was ever to want to motivate a child, or if I was ever to want to make a child feel empowered, nothing can be compared to putting a seed into a pot and watching, even if it's mustard seeds.
I
And
agree.
suddenly, if you just, before you know what's happened, the good thing about doing things by yourself is that you realize the magic of sunlight, you realize the magic of a seed having the messages for tomorrow in them. Please believe me that for a child it takes very little. It's not just Roblox and Minecraft and stuff like this that absorbs them. The magic of reality is about the most fantastic way to involve children, but the issue is just this: you can't outsource this. A parent cannot just say, okay, you go and teach my child about nature. At some point when a child stares out at the ocean, when you're passing by Marine Drive, or when you're in some other part of this beautiful country of ours, stop, listen, speak, talk, get them involved, make them know that you are interested, because the parent is the universe to the child. And if we manage to do that, I think that we will get the children very, very absorbed, very, very involved. And of course, I mean, every teacher will tell you what I mentioned earlier, that a child doesn't do what you tell them to do, a child does what you do. So this is one of the things I would do a small little experiments as well. Like we've done experiments and we've told children that, do you know something? You got magic eyes. When people grow old, sometimes they can't see very well, they can't hear very well. They kick a dog, they don't even think that it pains the dog. But a child is got super imagination, superpowers. So you can go up to somebody if he drops something, say, Uncle, you just dropped something. I think it may be useful to use it. Give the wrapper back to the. But we tell the children that, look, please always be very polite, because children have the power, but the moment children become ratty, the power is lost. So that's another thing that we look. That's not exactly the answer that you might have been looking for, but I would say to you that if you take these wonderful people, Raj, Preeti, I mean, come on, my lovely green teachers, these are the guys, they'll tell you children are so easy, they're malleable, but you have to love them as much as you want them to love you.
True.
That's about it. The rest works out.
Yes, and what you said resonated so much with me because just today morning, so we had sown the methi seeds recently, and the plant is growing well. And today, my daughter said exactly this: that Mom, isn't this magic that you get this big plant out of seeds? So when you were saying that, I just kept thinking that that's so true. That's I completely agree with that. So the second question from the audience is an interesting one. So Aruna asked that we are born in paradise and it's a beautiful world. That's, a beautiful thought that you said. But how can we ensure that each person and each child realizes the power of the individual to make a positive mark on our planet and does not give way to disillusionment? I think that's very important because often we get to hear this, right? That, one person, how much change can you make? Or, one small action, how does it make a difference? So what do you suggest that how can we make kids and in fact everybody realize the power of this individual mark that we can make?
So you see, you have this wonderful human being called Nikita with you. And I'll tell you something, that if adults were to sit with Nikita, here is what would probably happen. You would probably hear from her that all the problems created in the world, they're not created by somebody else, they're created by us. The good things, the bad things, because of the individual actions of us all, whether it's buying something and then chucking the plastic away, whether it's buying something with toxic stuff in it, or whether it's disposing of a battery right in your kachara, which goes in and poisons things with heavy metals. So when we create the problem individually, obviously the solution is also there with us individually. But this doesn't mean that all the problems are created by 1.5 out of 1,000 people, and the rest of us, children included, we become the servants of those 1.5 irresponsible people. That's not how it works. So collective pressure, though we work individually, we have to work collectively. Though we will also need very, very distinctly, sessions like these are so vital, Kumi. They're so vital because it gives us a sense of brotherhood, sisterhood, call it what you will, and it gives us hope. So I think unity is one thing. And as far as the individual is concerned, here's what I tell my grandchildren, all right? I tell them that, look, when you brush your teeth, you know something? You don't really need the music of a tap running fast into your sink. So if you brush your teeth or wash your hands, don't hear the water. A small little trickle will do. And that's when you're in the bathroom and nobody else is watching you. That is when you begin to feel the magic, that you're doing it for yourself, not to impress your friends, not to impress your teachers, not to impress your family, not to write out somewhere. When you begin to feel the happiness of doing the right thing yourself, that magic takes charge and the individual becomes empowered. And the bitter human being, the most bitter human beings are those who are angry with, justifiably angry with what they see, but they don't do anything. They don't take the first step to correct it. The minute you take your first step, no matter what it is, some person might go out, looking to clean up garbage. Another person might go out to try and teach other people. A third person might go out and write a letter to the prime minister. Like the diversity of a forest, the diversity of our individual actions are extremely powerful. But people must believe that. And we must reinforce that as teachers, as parents.
Yes, that's so beautifully put. Completely agree, sir. So the next audience question is that in a world where there is so much of pain and wickedness around, how can we bring up children to believe in a beautiful world? Because they are constantly, also hearing all those negative, negativities that exist around us. So what is your take on that?
Well, I have two of the best teachers I can imagine in the whole world here with us, Preeti and Nikita. And as far as Raj and I are concerned, warriors, Raj is a warrior. But I'll tell you this, that, you know, it's it's not an easy question to answer, but I'll go obliquely. What I'd like to suggest to you is this, that no matter which end of the web you touch, solutions web, I'm not talking about a web of a spider or the web food web. No matter which web you start influencing others. That if I'm doing something, for instance, suppose something has fallen on the road and I start picking it up and putting it right, somebody or the other will come and say, let me help you, let me help. Suddenly a movement starts. And actually, this business of protecting the environment, I don't know any better way for us to actually, as parents and teachers, to look at what Raj would call nature-based solutions. These are in your house. Pest control, for instance. If you set the, see, I never answer a direct question. I always go around and round and round and round. So please forgive me. If I was in school, I was always giving that remark, could do better if only he applied himself. But I was implying myself with my imagination. And I'm so hungry to see that all these wonderful, wonderful minds over here. Honestly, I do believe that the small actions that we do will make a huge difference. In fact, if you think back, when we focus, Kids for Tigers focuses on young people, it was not out of some kind of accident. I do believe this business of leaving better children for the world has the hardest strategy. The Vietnam War was not stopped by people of my age. They were stopped by 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds. The firecrackers, there's a lady called Madhu Bhatnagar who's with the Sri Ram school, and she went around and with a lot of other teachers, all teachers. And I am a Punjabi, so I can say this. these male Punjabis going along saying, "Mere bacche ke liye main itna acha atom bomb kharida." He wasn't buying it for his children. He was buying it because he wanted to make an atom bomb sound louder than his neighbor, you know. But the children said, "I don't want this." The same thing happened with smoking. The same thing happens with children can influence adults. Teachers must take strength from that. Parents must understand that there's nothing instant. Everything takes time, and persistence, curiosity, and determination can solve all the problems, and we can get our children to become a force to reckon with. I promise you, Anupama, that I'm not ever capable of giving a direct answer to a direct question, but I can tell you this, that whatever it is, any part of this, you start doing the right thing, set the right example, and like dominoes, the right solutions begin to play. The individual makes a difference. The individual put together is the collective. And public opinion and the legitimacy of children, please believe me, that's stronger than the most rich billionaires in the world who don't want to do the right thing. And it's equally inspirational for the billionaires who want to do the right thing. So,
Right.
pardon my not giving very
No. I
clear
think you
answers.
not just answered the question, but also gave such a lovely, perspective to us. The next question is pretty interesting because I think we normally do have these conversations a lot about keeping pets at home. What is your opinion? That does it restrict their freedom? Like, is it, I mean, because I know that this debate keeps coming up often, even between friends or when we talk about it. So, what is your opinion on that?
Look, when you say pets at home, there are some pets. Let's take the issue of dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs became pets more than 4,000 years ago, you know. They were wolves. They hung around camps, and human beings by nature are pretty careless, you know. We don't care about our garbage. So when we finished with eating the bones that we ate or whatever it is and we threw it away, the dogs kept following. And when an enemy tribe came, the dogs started going, "Woo, woo, 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 woo," warning them. So humans found there was a wonderful thing. The dogs were giving them early warning using their sense of smell, their sense of hearing, and their voice. And the dogs found that, look, these guys not bad, you know. I mean, they're just feeding us. We don't have to go out and kill. So there was a mutualism involved there, you know. So I would say that dogs are not dogs, they're therapists, you know. And you don't have to keep one at home. I live in a building called Belmont, a lovely building called Belmont, an old building in Mumbai. And we had a dog called Raju. That dog died some years ago. And before I knew what happened, the welfare of stray dogs, I got a call from my friend Abod Aras and said, "Look, I got a call from your watchman in the building saying, Raju to gaya, humko koi na koi rescue dog chahiye." You know, the dog is a therapist for all these watchmen. I have nothing wrong with pets, but I have an abhorrence for a bird in a cage.
Mm.
I feel a sense of revulsion when I visit a zoo. I believe that trying to teach people about nature by showing them a tiger or a gorilla or a chimp inside a confined area is like trying to teach a child about crime by taking them to the Arthur Road jail or Alipur jail in Calcutta and saying, "Look at that man, you see, he did something." You can't get the essence of the wild and the respect for nature by showing something which is, and particularly when you have the insensitive lots poking sticks in. And so, pets, don't keep wild pets, don't buy them, don't use them, don't keep them, don't do anything. Birds, don't keep them in cages, they have wings because they were meant to fly, and so on and so forth. But if you ask me, the best pet that I could ever have, it's actually a gecko. There's a gecko that lives outside, and every time I come back after dark, I can hear tick, 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 and I can see that this fellow is out over there near the closest bulb looking to make sure he's pest control. I go to sleep with an orchestra of frogs outside. I live on the ground floor.
Wow.
Are they my pets or am I their pet? I don't know, because I've fought like hell to keep those guys free from pesticides, free from digging up their lives, free from everything else. So spiders, all these various things, the birds. I mean, on Malabar Hill, there's a guy called Darshan Khatao. If you look at what the kind of things he's got right outside, he doesn't keep anything at home. I have no problem with dogs. I have a lot of problems with most other pets. Cats. Remember, cat is never your pet. You are the cat's pet. So even if you move house, the cat will love the house more than the cat will love you. I think in my experience, the first time in my life I'm living without a dog in my house. And that's because my wife said she doesn't have any more place in her heart for it to be broken because the lifespan of a dog and us. But then we suddenly got Coco, this beautiful fellow that was given to us. And with Coco, he's now found a girlfriend that the whole building calls Kokila, both spayed and nicely neutered, but they are beautiful. And I given again a long answer to a short question.
No, we love hearing you, sir. So that's absolutely okay. And yes, I think that statement you made about, whether you are their pet or, they are your pet, that's such a lovely way of looking at it. And that was pretty insightful. The next question is that, do you feel schools should have a garden and get kids to work with the soil? Because I do know that today some schools have become more, mindful about this, and they do, include this also in the syllabus, where they actually take kids, right there and make, have workshops also on environment. But largely, I think still a lot of schools are not doing it. So do you think that will help more?
I'd put it like this. If I had the ability to take Nikita and Preeti and turn them into the power 1000, I would do so. Because I do believe that creating butterfly gardens is not just a question of aesthetics for us. When you create a butterfly garden, you've created a bee garden. I can promise you, do one thing. Do an experiment. You feel your pulse, and then you go out and sit next to a tree and just watch it and feel your pulse. Your pulse slows down. Your blood pressure comes down. Your heartbeat is more even. Your breath is more even. I think that this is how it affects you individually, personally. But the future, Raj will confirm this. The future lies in not wasting the roof. Why on earth, if you go into a tall building and you look around you, possibly every city in India today, the largest open space is the roof. It's not being used. You have a water tank and you have fungus and you have mosses and you have stuff like this. Nothing wrong with mosses. But I believe that traffic islands, ordinary traffic islands, they should be growing food crops on trees. I see no reason that we shouldn't take a lesson from the Mughals. When they knew they had to go from Igatpuri to Delhi, at that point, what they did was on either side, they planted mangoes where mangoes grew, papayas where papayas grew, bananas, you name it, badam trees, all these things, the food trees. I see no reason why we should not do that. And I think that creating green spaces where we live, there is a program called Wild Cities. Raj is a part of it. Geeta has been a part of it. And I believe that the more wild we keep our city, the more healthy we will be. I think every teacher here has probably heard of something called One Health. If you haven't, key it just key in One Health into Google, and you will see that it's not possible for doctors anymore to treat human beings and say, okay, this is how you stay healthy. One Health means the health of humans, the health of wild species, and the health of domestic animals. These are all interlinked. So One Health is, where have I lost this mic? One Health is one thing that can most certainly be, uh, um, it can certainly be triggered by the equivalent of keeping cities wild and green, and that includes the roof. I would focus on the roof like Preeti has done, but I would equally focus on the closest little corner of green. Every space that is, the paver blocks and things. If I had my way, if I was municipal commissioner, if I was chief minister, I would order over the next year to remove every piece of cement that was not absolutely necessary and allow the green to come back. So yes, again, long answer, short question. I'd say please, please, please allow your spaces to be used by the gardeners of Eden. They need a space, you need their services, and it would do good for children and probably more good for parents because the children will be absorbed by all these wonderful things.
Right. Yes, that's absolutely right, sir. And even the audience are, saying that they can actually listen to you endlessly. So, they're happy to hear more from you. So, of course, we have a lot of comments and questions, but because of the time constraint, I'll probably take one last question, which someone is asking about the festivals. That the way we celebrate festivals, some of the things, can be harmful to the environment. So, do you think that we should also you relook at that and try to be more mindful? Because of course, the celebration is one thing, but yeah. So, what is your take on that? Because again, that has always been a burning topic of discussion in the society. So, what's your opinion?
Look, I have a confession to make. Personally, I am a quasi pantheist. For me, God, religion, this is the breeze that blows over a tree. This is bird song. These are those frog orchestras
Right.
I hear. And I celebrate them every single day of my life. And if you look at the thousands of bird watchers, that's how they celebrate. As far as, how do I say this without sounding judgmental? Uh, Let me put it like this. I don't think any one religion has a lien on doing the wrong thing. I
Yes. Yes.
don't think that these festivals are something that one is better or one is worse. But how can we worship something and then this take the case of Ganesh? We worship the elephant, but ivory used to be traded and still is.
Mm.
We worship Shiv and we deal in snake skins and I mean every single religion in the world worships water, yet we will poison chapati with toxic chemicals. And the same goes for every religion that you can think of. This
Yes.
is not exclusive to, long before the Abrahamic religion, long before Hinduism, long before all these, it was one of those things that happened in our lives that worship was nature worship. When we had to celebrate, we would go into the Ganga and we would perhaps go into the Ganga and in that cold water feel the magic of the mountains. It was fine. But then when human beings come in and say, I can build a statue bigger than you can build a statue, I'm afraid now here comes the judgmental part. I really think that men have mismanaged the biosphere and the testosterone of men has brought us to this path. And it is time now. I'm not saying that women are, oh, so much more sensitive than men and women are very good and men are very bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if I was running a football team and you lost 42 matches in a row, I would change the composition of my team and I would change my manager. I think it's time for us to begin to diversify the strategies by which we want the world to be protected. And for that, women will have to stand up and be counted and be listened to, not because you're women, but because you're right. You have a longer, you have a longer horizon.
Right.
This is biological. I know we're running out of time, but this is biological. Why is it biological? Because you take a tigress. For the moment, forget about human beings. You take a tigress. A tigress will carefully choose its mate because it has an investment. For 2 years, those cubs are dependent upon the mother. The mother will not want to just abandon the cub after two weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. It has an investment in the future. Now transfer that to human beings. The fact is that most men, they are competing with each other today. I'm telling you from the hard fact of life. They compete with each other in the club. They compete with each other on the field. They compete with each other in business. They compete with each other in politics. And women, in order to seek equality, are emulating men. It's the other way around. I see my daughters, and they're bringing up their children to smell flowers. They're bringing up their children to understand that pink is not for girls. Pink can be a wonderful color for boys. This idea of crossover, I never answer the questions quite right, and perfectly. I will say this to you that it is part of your destiny as women. to take charge of this planet,
Yes.
because we do need that. And it's not that you'll do a better job, you'll make softer men. You'll
Yes.
turn men into softer human beings, and less competitive, and less arrogant, and less ignorant, and less avaricious, and less apathetic. We have to work together.
Yeah.
Even women will be inspired by the children. Geeta, you've got a lot of work to do. Raj, Nikita, Preeti, these are the most beautiful human beings. I've had a wonderful time. I'm so sorry about the disruption and going here and there in the age of COVID. I'm right now holding my phone because my computer is in a place that I cannot walk to right now. So,
Yeah.
Kumi,
No,
thank
that.
you very much. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much.
I mean, I think that was a very beautiful, thought to actually wrap up this session. And it was a wonderful time. I think all of us, I'm sure, have taken away, a lot from this session. And I would now like to invite Ms. Shalanta Masarenas, Senior Teacher of English at the JCBN International School, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Anupama. Thank you, Mr. Bittu Sahgal, for your powerful presentation on mindfully and heartfully connecting children to the earth. Many thanks also to the team of change facilitators comprising Preeti Takle, Rituraj Pukhan, Nikita Pimple, and Hita Lakhani. We applaud the work you all do and know that you have worked consistently for months to put together a very meaningful action project. Our thanks also go out to Ms. Anupama Dalmia for anchoring the session so well. We also extend our gratitude to all our participants who have joined us today from all over India and different countries of the world. Do attend all the remaining sessions of the summit, which have been scheduled for weekends only up to 31st January 2021. We need you to work collaboratively with us to bring about the change we want to see in the world. To also note that the Google form for the action group on parenting for a better planet for our kids and better kids for our planet is available on our website gtpsforchange.org. Do remember to also join us next weekend. Could we have the slide for the sessions in the next weekend? The 16th of January from 4 to 5:15 p.m. we have a session on nurturing creativity with the arts. It's going to be conducted by Suzanne Roderick, school leader in Dubai, a special educator and data-driven curriculum designer. The session will also be anchored by Tara Sharma Saluja, British Indian actress, entrepreneur, creator, and producer. The session on the 17th of January from 4 to 5:15 p.m. is by Varsha Makija, clinical psychologist, founding member and co-principal of the Gateway School for Challenges with Gateway School for Children with Learning Challenges, on the topic, It Takes a Village to Raise a Differently Able Child. This session is going to be anchored by Rakhi Chabria, the founder of Teacher Help Teachers. Do also remember that the link is the same for all sessions of this summit. And in case you do not receive the link, it is available on the homepage of the website, gtpsforchange.org. Sessions that you miss can be accessed in the past event section of this website. Also remember to like and follow us, okay, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as YouTube. Until then, thank you, stay safe, stay happy. Thank you.